Hello and welcome to another episode of my yarn podcast. This week I have some finished objects to show you and I have some works in progress that I'm quite excited about. I have some kind of tentative plans and some quite firm plans that I would like to share with you. And I also have a couple of not really yarn acquisitions, but I did purchase a few yarn related things recently, and I have some plans to specifically look for some particular kinds of yarn that I would like to talk a little bit about. Beyond that, I'm slowly morphing into kind of my more autumn persona. So in some of the last episodes I've been talking about how I was struggling a little bit with figuring out how to match or combine my pink hair with my more autumn wardrobe. Like, I still like wearing pink and I still have like a lot of pink woolly things as well that I plan on wearing in the upcoming colder season. But I also have a lot of clothes that are more like this. They're more velvet, they're more red based, so I figured going a little bit more purple with my hair would maybe combine a little bit more easily with those types of colors, and thus far I'm kind of happy with the result. Also sporting these lovely more autumnal nails that I'm excited about. And in terms of what I'm wearing as what I've made myself, the dress I have not made myself. I think I just bought it in a random thrift store, but it's one of my absolute favorite dresses. I think velvet is my most favorite type of fabric to wear when it starts getting colder, because I think it's really nice for layering, and then I like layering my more woolly items with that. Speaking of woolly items, I think quite some years ago actually, when I was still very much more at the beginning of my knitting and crochet journey, this was one of the first things that I made that I was actually really happy about. So sometime during the winter of either 2019 or 2020, it was those times at least, I started getting really heavily into crochet. That is actually also how I injured my hand to the point where I needed to get surgery on that. I will probably talk more about that some other time and go a little bit more in depth, because I do think it's an important PSA for people that like to go really hard, especially on crocheting, but knitting as well, and the potential consequences that can have even when you're younger. But beyond that, this was one of the first things I made around that time that I was actually really happy with. I freehanded crocheted as well. I followed a couple of patterns for vest tops, and then this one, from the knowledge I had learned from doing that, I just applied it with making this one. So this is just crocheted. I think it is in single crochets, and I put these lovely buttons on there and it just fits me beautifully. I really like it. It's one of my favorite little vest tops to add to an outfit. But when it starts getting colder, I love wearing these little Uniqlo heat tech shirts underneath all my knits. Usually that is enough for me. I just always want to have like a little layer that is purely soft between me and my knits in case I get a little bit itchy. I don't always get itchy, but especially when you get a little warm and sweaty in them, you can get a little bit more itchy more easily. But that leaves your arms exposed when you wear the little vest tops. And in order to combat that in a way that requires me, or doesn't require me to actually put a full sweater on, but still allows me to wear my little vest tops, last year when it was cold, I started making these little just sleeves, I guess. They're just very easy to make. You can't see it super well with this because I have combined it with the mohair, but I just do this little edge of ribbing, and then I just, in the round on the little shorty needles that I like to use, I just knit plain stockinette stitch until I think they're long enough. This is actually a spin cycle yarn that I combined with a red mohair that I think I got from Stephen and Penelope. I think this is one of my more favorite pairs. I was also finding it interesting that last year, at least when I was looking and I was like really on the hunt for it, I was kind of unable to find a nice variegated yarn that combined black and red. So I ended up combining a spin cycle yarn that had some oranges and some blacks with this red mohair that gave me a little bit of the vibe I was looking for. But if I do happen to find a red and black variegated yarn in a fingering weight that I think is nice and soft enough, I would still like that and add another pair to this. I think sometime soon I'll do a little bit of a series or maybe one episode of stuff I'm really excited to be able to start wearing in the upcoming cold season again. Maybe kind of a mix of stuff that I've made and stuff that I'm just generally really excited to be able to start wearing again. And I think my little collection of sleeves should definitely feature in that, because I've made some, I think I've made at least one, no, I've made a few colorwork ones as well that I was really happy with. And this was just something that I didn't see. I don't think I've even looked at one pattern for them. And what's a really nice thing that you are also able to do is you can basically take any colorwork pattern, especially if you like making colorwork socks, and you can take that same principle and the graphs and stuff and just use them for sleeves like this. So I have quite a little collection of those, and I really like using hand spun yarn with it as well. Even though that sometimes tends to wear a little bit less well, but sometimes it can be just like so soft and so nice and delicate. So I really like that. And yeah, I think that would be fun to go through. I've also made some little like woolly hats and bucket hats last year that I think could be fun to share. So I think at some later point in time I would like to share stuff like that with you as well, but we'll see when that happens. Beyond that, I have made one little fix to one of the projects that I showed to you recently. So I've talked about making these socks and that I've made them too slouchy. So I finally found the type of elastic that I was looking for to kind of run through the top of this, because these are knitted, as I usually do with all my socks, cuff down. So I really didn't want to undo the cuff and re-knit them in either a tighter gauge or with an elastic. So I decided to be a little lazy but also practical, and I went to one of my local craft stores and I found this wonderful rainbow elastic to make jewelry with, because the type of elastic that I was specifically looking for was the very thin type that was wrapped in not just the elastic, but that's wrapped in a little bit of thread as well. And I was extra happy to find this really nice rainbow set of elastic, because I don't know, that way when I see it poking, like it would have been fine if it would have been black as well, but I think it's extra fun to be able to see this elastic poke through there a little bit. So what I did, I just threaded, I measured like how long I would need the piece of elastic to be to fit around my calf and stay up. That's the most important part in this case. And I just threaded it through a needle, and then I just wove it through the top of the sock. When I stretch it out, you can maybe kind of see it a little bit in there, and I've tested them out. I'm actually wearing them today and just yoinked this one off to show to you. And it's a wonderful solution. This was the most low effort thing I could have done to fix my problem, and I'm happy I did. Because now they just stay up, and I'm really happy with them, because the way they were slipping down was just not how I envisioned, and it was driving me a little bit insane and made it that I didn't enjoy wearing them. So this was just a quick, easy fix, and I'm really happy with it. For my first finished object, like I was saying, I had plans to knit the Oslo hat. I was running into so much difficulty with this though. I still feel like I don't understand certain things about the pattern. Because for instance, it says after you fold over the edge to continue in the wrong side of the stockinette stitch, basically for like 2 more centimeters. I only did 1 extra edge of that, or maybe 2, and I still think I don't recognize the way this looks from when I look at the pictures. So I still don't understand what I did there. I was also having a lot of trouble figuring out the gauge. So I basically knitted the first part of this hat like 5 different times, and I did gauge swatch, by the way. I didn't do it very properly, but I did at least try to do a gauge swatch, but it didn't save me, that's for sure. And I even one time got to the full folded over edge, knitted it together, and then figured out that it was too tight, because when I was gauge watching it, it seemed like I needed to make it bigger than the amount of stitches that the pattern called for, and then when I was casting on stitches I quickly noticed that it was way too big, so then I made it smaller again, and then I made it smaller again, and then I made it bigger again, and in the end, so my head circumference is I think around 60 centimeters, which is the largest, which would call in the pattern fall under the largest size. But that amount of stitches got me nowhere near, that would have been a massive hat on me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought if what the pattern calls for and we hold 2 fingering weight yarns together, that we then get something approximate of a DK weight yarn. So I thought that I could use the same or similar needle size and use a DK weight yarn with that and get similar results. But this pattern was just jerking me around all over the place. This was kind of really difficult to figure out. This is part of why I really don't like making hats and why I think it's really troublesome, because I do, maybe it's the autism, but I do feel like the hat needs to have a very specific fit and there's not really a lot of wiggle room there, because when it's too loose it will not protect your ears, and I do, when I wear a hat, like I specifically want my ears to be protected, so when it's too loose and gapey it's just doing nothing to protect my ears. And when it's too tight, it's uncomfortable and I can't stand the tightness around my head and I can't wear it. So maybe I'm just really finicky, maybe my head is stupidly large. I think we've established that that is kind of partly the case. But beyond that, I still don't understand this pattern. I have made 2 hats though. This is the other one. I just kind of wanted to do some mindless stockinette knitting and I still had this yarn, so, and I also wanted to see if I could make it a little bit bigger than the previous one and see how I would get on with that. It's fine. So for this one I was using, so I think for both of them I was using 3.5 millimeter needles. For this one I have done 80 stitches. For this one I have done 92 stitches. Mind you, both of these stitch counts are smaller than what the smallest hat size of the pattern calls for. And let me remind you again that my head size would fall into the biggest size of the pattern. So I am still confused, but I do have 2 hats. So fuck it, who cares? I think it's, when you have figured all of that out, it is a fun knit, it is an easy knit. As soon as I made the first one, I think for the second one, I didn't really even refer to the pattern anymore because it is basically so simple. I enjoy how sturdy and squishy this folded over edge is, so that's really nice. But beyond that, figuring out the gauge and the amount of stitches that you need to actually set up for your knitting, but dreadful. I am worried for the next hat that I will want to make if I want to use a different yarn. I think I'm really committed to the Life in the Long Grass DK weight yarn for these hats, because then at least I feel confident in knowing the gauge and the amount of stitches that I need to set up for that. But anything else, I have no idea. I'm very confused. I know I'm not the most knowledgeable about things in terms of like yarn weights and gauge swatches and stuff like that, but still I feel like this was kind of rough to figure out. But at least we got there in the end. I have 2 hats and that's all there is to it. So the next thing that I have finished is indeed my little caplet. I am so happy with it. I think it is so cute. I will pop up a picture as well of a way that I would maybe close it, because as you can see there is no button on here currently, because I did make this specifically with the idea of closing it with a brooch. As you can see in the picture, that's the way I've styled it as well. It is so nice and soft. I'm really happy with the length that I made it. I'll quickly pop it on. I think with how I modified it, I also finally got a little closer to the original idea that I was talking about, because this one I can kind of close more like this instead of it hanging really low. It hits me on my arms where I was hoping it would So that's really nice. The yarn is lovely. It is that yarn from Black Elephant Dyers from London. I still have this much left that I'm hoping to add to my color Craze shawl. So I think that will be a nice complement to that. I'm really proud of myself of actually continuing. I don't like doing seed stitch. I think it's finicky. It's not too, like, I don't mind doing one by one ribbing, but there's something about seed stitch that kind of just like drives me insane, and this was a lot of seed stitch. It's quite a lot of stitches. I didn't count the stitches where I ended up with, but I think one row of seed stitch cost me like 20 minutes if I was properly focused on it near the end of it. So that was quite a lot of work, so I was really proud that I didn't scrimp out on the amount of seed stitching that I was doing, and I did it to a degree where I feel proud that I put the effort in to make it look nice. So that's really nice. I'm really happy to be able to start wearing this. I think it's just really cute. It is quite thin, but that's fine. It's a layering piece, and it's exactly in the autumny colors that I love. So I'm really happy that I finished it. Next up is kind of my pièce de résistance, I suppose. I love this. I was already talking about how much I was looking forward to knitting this, so I did knit this in about a week. I think it partially blinded me because the way this yarn combines on my little metal needles made me feel like at the end of the evening, I just couldn't see what I was doing anymore. But I enjoyed this project so much. Like I've mentioned before, I'm not the biggest fan of knitting lace, but in this lovely green color, I don't know, this was just so dreamy. It's so beautiful, it's so fun. This is the Event Horizon cowl from the Stitch in Witch. I think she's so cool as well. She just looks really cool. I stayed really close to her original color palette. I knit this on the smaller needles that she recommends. I've worn it quite a few times as well already. I am absolutely in love with it. It just looks so nice and puffy and frilly, but in these wonderful kind of more sci-fi colors. I think this is one of the types of projects that would bring me, I don't know, there's just like the construction, the way the pattern was written, the color choices that I made. It is just also in the way that she's written her pattern. I know she's called the Stitch in Witch, but it almost felt like there was some attention to numerology as well, because everything flows together so stinking nicely. It's also just like, as you can see, these holy parts kind of flow through into the middle of this lace work, which is just like, there's a lovely amount of attention to detail, which I really appreciate. I think she is so talented. I enjoyed knitting this so much. I even took the trouble to do 3x3 ribbing at the top here because the pattern called for it, and yeah, it's just, I'm sure I made some little mistakes here and there, but I think in general it worked out really well. I'm really happy with it. When I was when I was blocking it, I was a little bit worried about this color bleeding into that color, so I actually only blocked the lower lace part of it, which I think was kind of just like a nice safer choice. I didn't really feel like I needed to stretch the upper part that much anyway, and I would have just been so devastated if this lovely pinky purple would have bled into this slimy green color. So I don't know, I'm just really happy with this. This invigorated my knitting spirit so much. As I mentioned before, the purple is King Fiber Yak base in the color Foxglove, and the green is Undercover Otter Squirm Sock base in Deadite, I think. And it's wonderful, it's wonderful. This brought me so much joy. It brought me so much joy that I actually instantly started knitting, not the same one, but I started knitting another cowl pattern, which nicely brings me into my works in progresses. In this lovely sparkly project bag, I have my next cowl project. So the next cowl project that I have on my needles is called the Stag Cowl. As you can see here, this is what it's hopefully going to look like in the end. I have used these two yarns with it. One of them is the King Yak in the color Foxglove, and the other one is this lovely Life in the Long Grass variegated sock yarn. It is a 100% merino superwash sock yarn, so when I got it I was already a little bit doubtful if I wanted to use it for socks because there's no nylon in there, and that does seem a little bit risky to me, and I also thought the colors were just so beautiful. Here, I'll show you it here as well. I don't know, I just think it's really beautiful, and I also thought it would be kind of sad to hide this lovely color into my boots. So, and I do really like using the fancier sock yarns to make next to skin type of knits because they're often quite soft. So I decided that I would use it for this Stag Cowl, So I've started doing that. I have done the first little bit of color work, which is mostly this 1x1 color work ribbing. I had not done that before. I think it looks really cute. It was a little bit finicky, but not too finicky that I got annoyed with it. I even did 2 extra rows of it because I was worried that the 4 rows of 1x1 colorwork ribbing would not be enough to keep the project from curling. So I decided let's just do 2 more rows to be extra safe. And I also do think, especially with like the variegated yarn, this looks so cute. I am trying some new techniques for the rest of the color work, so I am attempting to do a ladder work jacquard on the back of this. I have not done that before, but because the pieces, the floats would be so long, and usually I would just catch them every 5 stitches. But as you could see in the colorwork pumpkin socks that I was making as well, sometimes you can just kind of see the other color poking through where you're catching your floats, and especially because this is quite high contrast and the color that I'm catching the floats of is the darker color, I got worried that that would be very visible. And I'm trying to do the ladder back jacquard, but I don't know if it's gonna work out for me because I did the full first row yesterday of the beetle part of the color work, and I noticed that I miscounted and I needed to knit back that whole row with the ladders and everything. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but I powered through, and now I'm ready to start over again, and I will double count this time. But yeah, I think it's going to be very cute as long as I keep with it, and yeah, I think it will be soft and squishy and nice, and I'll keep you posted. My other work in progress is in this lovely gingham project bag of mine. So you've been on this journey with me of the Librarian Vest, and I found my whip as I told you, but then I was trying it on and I started dropping stitches and it was becoming a little bit of a nightmare, and I also started feeling like the little cable part, I maybe did it on a little bit of too small needles. So I was fine in the end with just ripping it out and starting over. So this is me starting it over. I implemented the idea that I had of doing the ribbing in a contrasting color. I think that's working out quite nicely. I do think the ribbing right now looks a little bit messy because I had part of this ball of yarn I ripped out from another whip and it was a little bit crinkly, and I think I should have maybe gone down a little bit further for the ribbing part of this. It will probably relax a little bit in on itself after I block it though, so I think, and I don't think I mind that much, I think it will be fine in the end. And thus far I've made a couple of little mistakes here and there in making the little cables, but nothing too major, and when it was too major I did just knit backwards and fix it. I am starting to notice that I'm really enjoying both of these projects that I'm currently working on, but they're both kind of like high intensity knits for me. Like I'm not that good at doing, even though this is very simple cable work. Wait, first I was trying to make it nice and visible, so I'll give you a little peek of what it looks like here. It's very cute, I really like it. But both of these knits, both with the color work and with the cabling, are a little bit like on the higher intensity side of things in terms of like keeping your focus when you're knitting it. So I am noticing that I'm starting to really crave just some more simple knits. So this weekend I'm actually going on a little hunt for some lovely self-striping sock yarns. I just want some simple ones. I want colors that I like, but I just want to make a couple of plain vanilla pairs of socks. When I was just looking in my stash to see if I also maybe have still anything that, because a lot of my yarn stash is more focused on like making colorwork socks or like the little ankle socks that I was making in the summer. So I was looking around in my stash to see if I had anything that I could, I don't mind like switching a little bit between colors, but I just want some kind of basically more simple knitting. So I did find these two yarns that I got over the summer and that I used to make socks for other people with, that are more consistent in their color palette and don't switch as much between the cold season and the warm season in terms of their color palette. But I do still have like quite a bit of sock yarn left from this. Maybe I could get a full pair of socks out of this one, but I kind of don't want to risk it. So I'm thinking I'm going, because these are both self-striping sock yarns, they're very cute. And I'm thinking I'm going to combine these to kind of start a new pair of just like nice, luscious, long cold season socks for myself before I go on that little hunting trip this weekend. So that's going to be lovely. So that is part of my upcoming knitting plans. Beyond that, now that I have pulled all of my kind of winter wear out from underneath my bed again, I also have a better idea of what I feel like my wardrobe is currently kind of lacking. Technically, it's not really lacking much of anything, but I want to try. I don't think there's anything I necessarily want to buy, but there are some things I would love to make for myself. And one of the things I would really love to make for myself is this lovely colorwork cat sweater. I'm very excited about knitting this. I have started thinking about a color palette. I will briefly show you my idea of the color palette as well. That's part of what I'm going to look for on my little hunting expedition this weekend as well. I want to kind of compare with other things and see if there's maybe other options. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, I'm thinking the green, purple, and light pink color palette is going to be really cute. Of course, I still have to make the cats black to represent Bertje. And I'm also trying to organize a little knit along for my friends and I for this. So I think by now I've convinced maybe 2 or 3 friends to knit this with me, which I think will be really exciting. So if you also want to knit this colorwork sweater and kind of feel like we're all doing it together, I would like to encourage you to start knitting it around. My plan is to kind of officially start the knit along on either 14, like let's say the 15th of November. That's I think when everybody will have their yarn, and that way I can show you not only my updates on the sweater, but I can show you other people's updates as well. So if you want to join that, please go look at the pattern, go figure out what kind of yarn you would maybe need for that. And if you would like, I would personally love if you would send me also update pictures of how your sweater is doing. You can do that on my Instagram, which is Rosa Marije. I'll have it linked down below as well, because my name doesn't translate that well into English. So if you want to participate in that, you don't have to send me a message or anything. Just if you want to, please send me update photos on if you're knitting it. I'm very excited about knitting it. I'm very committed to knitting this. This is, for me, this is like I said, in stone knitting plan. I'm just not 1000% sure on my color choices yet, so I'm still looking to see how I'm feeling about that, but I am very excited about it, and I will definitely be starting it around the 15th of November. So I'm excited. From that, I'm also going to start my color Craze shawl in the next couple of probably 2 to 3 weeks. So I think that's going to be fun. For that, my kind of preliminary yarn selection is going to be something along these lines. I would love to put this lovely orange in there. I want to put my scrap from my little caplet in there. I want to put some lovely greens in there as well. I want to use some of this lovely cashmere that I still have left. So I think that's going to be really cute. And I'm excited to start working on that. That's also a relatively like set in stone pattern idea for myself. Beyond that, I think I mostly just want to make some more socks, and beyond that, I think when I look at my wardrobe, I think I'm allowed to make maybe 1 or 2 sweaters and or cardigans this cold season. I don't want to make that much more than that because I don't know like how much my skills will improve, and I of course want to still be able to make some more for myself later down the line. So I think for this cold season, like 1 or 2 sweaters and cardigans, that would be nice. I want to make another shawl, so that will be the color Craze shawl, and I definitely want to make some more pairs of socks. I think I do have quite a few pairs of socks, but I don't know, I just really like knitting them, so I think making a couple of more will just be really nice. Before I let you guys go, I will quickly just show my little yarn related acquisitions. So I went to my local knitting night recently, and they were getting rid of some of their last pom-pom issues. I think pom-pom is not entirely gone, but it's no longer in print or something, I'm not entirely sure. So I picked up this one and I picked up this one. I think for me, pom-pom, I sometimes kind of struggle with seeing a pattern knitted in like a lovely beige, but a beige nonetheless, and I sometimes struggle with projecting kind of my own preferred color palette onto that and kind of envisioning how that would look like. So for me, a publication like Pom-Pom that features more, in my opinion, interesting color combinations and stuff like that is more inspiring, because when something is already bright, it is more easy for me to kind of look at that and go like, oh, this is a bright orange, but I think I would like this in a bright pink. Versus if something is a beige, then I sometimes have trouble envisioning it as like a neon pink or something like that. So I really enjoy these and I'm going to be browsing through them. Both of them are summer issues though, so I'm not necessarily envisioning getting a lot of immediate inspiration from them, but we'll see how it goes. But for now, I'm really into my more woolly knit projects. Last but not least, I picked up a little bit of extra barber cord. It's not official barber cord, I think. It was quite cheap. It was I think €1 per meter, but I have been placing little bits of barber cord into multiple of my projects, so I was kind of running out. So I just got myself 2 more meters of it, and I really enjoy using it for stuff like provisional cast-ons and stuff like that, and also especially putting live stitches like the ones for a sleeve on them. I really enjoy that because it's just so darn easy to pick them back up again, and they're just nice and secure, and I always just tie a little knot on my barber cord so I know for sure it's not going to slip off. So that to me feels just like really nice and secure. And I know I have bits of scrap yarn, but this at least I will just keep using and using and using again. Whereas after I've used a bit of the scrap yarn, I would maybe just get rid of it, or I would put it into my little scrap yarn jar to be used for something else later. I don't know, I just really like how clean and simple it is to use stuff like this. So those were all my knitting plans and hopes and dreams. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know Beck did. She was wreaking havoc earlier, and now she finally went down for her little morning nap, so I love to disturb her when she's doing that, because she definitely disturbed me this morning when I was trying to have a little longer nap, also known as just my night's sleep. I love her so much, she's so cute. I hope you enjoy seeing her pop in at the end of these videos as well. If you want to let me know about stuff that you're knitting, I would love to hear about that in the comments down below. Or if you want to send me any pictures of your current whips on Instagram, I love seeing what other people are doing as well. Especially, but not limited to, if it's also more bright color choices. Please send me stuff like that. I really enjoy it. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day. And Bert and I are signing off. Bye.